So like in a spider sense, you're not going to do a bumblebee any other way. You're not going to do like, there's a lot of genes out there that are going to be, like I said, you can dupe a lot with spot nose, but then you still have a super spot nose weakness issue. You still have, there's still that, like, you know, and I think that if we're going to nitpick things, I'm glad Puzzle was just mean and ate really good and got really big and had lots of eggs. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Like, it could have been worse. Desert could have been my gene. You know what I mean? Like, or caramel albino could have been my gene. I'm happy that my gene that landed in my lap was a mean eater that got big and had lots of eggs. That means that everybody that bought it was like, yeah, it bit the shit out of me, but it ate every rat I gave it, and it laid lots of eggs and made me lots of money. And like in the reptile world, it doesn't take much more than that to be everybody's hero. Is supply them with something that A, eats well, B, produces lots of cash, and C, is fun to ride along the way and gives a lot of future. You do that for people, man, and you should have some hero status in a way, because you have made a bit of business for everyone else to dive into, right? Like, I sold
what my thought is. Like, I love doing the shows, Sean. I love doing the shows. So I'm always going to produce some show quality ball pythons, like the ones that people want as pets. Now, do I have, future goals to make some more elite combos? Absolutely. Actually, I'm working on some of them now, right?
The best thing about somebody like you, I'm sorry, I'm always interrupting people, but the best thing about, when I see a point, I need to jump on it. The best thing about somebody like you is your career will be made introducing this to other people that aren't as familiar with it. And nothing is rewarding. Like, I'll say, I sold my ball pythons and went to the fish store and bought a bunch of corn snakes with the money. So you know what that did to me? That reset me in the practice of people. Okay. Like, I'm getting watery eyed talking about it because it means a lot to me. Because what it did was it brought me from the upper end of ball pythons down to the lowest end of corns, and people that are just getting into this and buying their first pet for their kid or their first pet for their home. And honestly, nothing is more rewarding than dealing with that level of person. Now, I have gotten $40,000 for a corn snake, $35,000 for a ball python, and $20,000 for a boa constrictor. I don't need to prove anything else to myself or anyone else in this business from a breeder standpoint.
Yeah, at our last show, one of the most expensive snakes we sold was a couple who looked at the snake like 3 times that day. And they came back towards the end of the day, and they chose to buy the snake because they felt like we were the ones who were willing to spend the time educating them about that particular snake, holding it, figuring it out, telling them about the visual personality.
Yes, ma'am. That's it. This weekend, we had a guy who was scared of snakes come in with his wife who was scared of snakes, and they decided to go to the reptile show to get over their fear and to potentially leave with a reptile pet. Now, they came into the show, they walked around, and for some reason, they settled with us. And I love that. I love that I'm in a show with 100 fucking people doing exactly what I'm doing, and this guy settled with us. That means so much to me. He bought a $50 ball python after spending an hour and a half with him. I don't give a fuck. This dude is going to be a problem like you. He's going to have rooms full of the shit. And I told him his wife that. I'm like, you guys fucked up today coming in here. You would have been better staying scared of all of this shit and leaving your pocketbook perfectly fine. However, you're going to be a breeder. You know how I know? And he's like, how? And I was like, because I look in your eye and I see the twinkle, and you're going to go broke if you don't breed snakes, bro. That's it. You're going to fucking die in this hobby if you don't breed rats and snakes. That's just, I'm sorry. It's just how it works. You just get roped into the game. You know, and because otherwise all you're doing is paying to care for shit that doesn't really care for you otherwise. It doesn't lick you when you wake up in the morning. It doesn't bark when a stranger comes over to warn you. It doesn't do any of that. It literally sits and eats money and shits. That's it.
Unless it's a retic, it does come to you in the morning.
Sure, it comes to you. It's got intelligence, but but it's still a pet rock by most people's standards. You know what I mean? Like, a retic will ask you for water when it needs water and bite the fuck out of you when it's hungry. I mean, and that's in the end of it. It's like, yeah, okay. When your dog's sitting there like pawing you, like, give me some fucking water, bro. Like, please give me some water.
Yeah, we laugh sometimes just watch them move their water bowls and stuff like that. Like, okay, are you trying to tell me something?
Exactly. And honestly, I think sometimes they truly are. I think of your boy Blue. I think of your boy Blue from Jurassic Park. You know, I mean, at some point, Like, I'm not lying to you. If you mess with cyclurid iguanas, if you mess with rhino iguanas or Lewisi hybrids or Honduran rock iguanas, any of those cyclurid species, you will find that in that species. You will find an animal that alerts to, like, if you think a Retix interactive deer, get a rhino iguana or Lewisi hybrid, some cyclurid iguana, because it is like buying a bulldog as a lizard. It is going to come to you. It's going to lay its head in your lap. It's going to scratch you. It's going to move its bowl around when it's hungry. It's going to bite the shit out of you when it's mad. Like, you know, like that. That's just like
all costs with my lizards. A snake can bite me.
You got to be careful with the lizards. Yeah. Well, especially monitors, you know, because you get lots of
I mean, shoot, my monitors, I do not.
Yes, man. Lots of good infections from their bites. So yeah, so back to that talk. I think that you're gonna eventually discover these genes, and it's easy for, like you said, if you're in your 20s or in your 30s, you know, it's easy for you to shit on these genes and to shit on the breeders that profited on them, when you got to realize that this is all an imperfect science, an unproven process, and at the end of the day, it's a fucking crapshoot. I mean, in what world am I going to tell you, Nicole? Like, if you invest with me, you can breed these snakes together, and the odds of you hitting a baby is 50-50. And you're like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me I'm going to spend all this money and it's not guaranteed? No investor would look at that process and be like, if this happens, if that happens, and if this goes okay, this will result. And be like, yep, nope, that doesn't sound like a good business plan.
Right.
And move away, except for when they see a Bob Vu or an Ozzy or a Brock Wagner literally laying down millions of dollars in profit, and then they're like, "Oh, this has business."
But even that was a process, you know. They wasn't, you know, it took time to get to.
And you're not seeing the net total. I grossed 700 grand one year. I grossed 500 grand several years. I've sold a corn, like, again, I'll go through that again. I sold a corn snake for 40 grand, a ball python for 35, and a boa constrictor for 20. I know how to make zeros off of a snake, but at the end of the day, it cost me a fuckload of money to get those zeros. It didn't just happen. And it certainly didn't happen in a way that I'd tell my wife, honey, all we're doing is moving the nest egg from this account to another account. No fucking way would I ever say something asinine like that. That is absolutely ignorant shit right there. Because you have no name. You're coming into a league. And listen, if that gentleman's listening to this, I'm really sorry. I don't even know his name. I don't know the business name. I don't know the episode number. So I'm not picking on him as an individual. I'm picking on the whole entire idea of, honey, let's do this. And not having, because listen, Nicole, I've been to a show where a woman came to me with her children, and it was out of control. And she drug her kids to the booth and she said, listen, we are homeless because of you. My husband spent all of our money on this. He didn't tell me he second mortgaged our house for this. This is true. He was in Colorado and he was a shithead. Okay. He did. And she did the same thing to Marshall and a couple other people that took his money for good animals that he could have worked. So when I tell you I'm doing this, what's your fucking problem, right? At the end of the day, I'm working 20 hours a day. Are you working 21? Because if you're not working 21, you're not going to one-up me, right? And I don't mean that as a Sean stance. I mean that in your stance. You said something before that we started the show about steam and about motivation. Right. And honestly, that's the motivation, because I honestly used to tell everyone the same thing. The only way to lose in this game is to stop playing the game. And I stopped playing the game and I suffered a massive loss. Never have I been a poster child for do as I say, not as I do, than that moment right there when I sold out in 2019. Now, I'm glad I sold out when I sold out, Nicole, because most of my collection was Kodam stuff that was all in one area and of that, and not enough recessives, like not even remotely enough. I didn't save enough male clowns. I didn't save enough male puzzles. I never wanted to. I want to keep it rare. That's who I am. I'm keep it rare. That's me. I'm like, let's open a steakhouse with a $300 steak, and let's say that cow only exists on one planet, in one country, in one city, in one town, in one village, right? And let's just make it rare, and let's make it valuable. Let's put a thing to a thing, right? Not let's make 100 million of them and get as much money out of it as we can before it's worthless. And that's basically how ball pythons were treated by the bulk, I believe, of the people that I worked with and worked alongside of along the way. It was add more space, build a bigger building, buy more land, build a bigger building. And honestly, that's some shit you do with dubia roaches and crickets and mice and rats and other ancillary goods. It's not necessarily something I feel has a place in here. So that's my retired view of it. You know,
bullshit podcast.
Yes, ma'am. Let's do that.
Just saying.
Let's do that.
Because that's
Tuesdays. Let's face it, the new ball.
Moving forward, we coming back like you should have stayed.
Well, listen, I can go off for a summer and let people fuck off and let people fix things. Because honestly, we're not going to say that like shit fell apart for me in one show, right? Shit fell apart. It wasn't my fault.
But all of that was a learning experience, I think.
But it wasn't just a learning experience for me, which I love. It was a learning experience for you.
Right. Everybody.
We're pre-recording this right now, which you said I don't edit anything. But if I did come off unhinged, there's a chance you could possibly do that unless maybe you wouldn't. But you wouldn't know. Let's just say that you wouldn't know what you would do until you're posed with the situation of doing.
So, and we talked about that personally, and I think that's for sure. But also, what I know just about me, right? And I said this to you that I think that sometimes, like, I'm not going to over-explain myself, right?
I over-explain myself. Every woman in my life has taught me to over-explain yourself is the only way to get out of any fight possibly ever. And that's it. Like, I'm sorry. I'm like that with my mom.
I'm not that. See, I guess maybe my husband always say I'm unique. I see it differently. If you over-explain yourself, it makes me feel that you were guilty. I like it better when, Sean, I say, babe, blah, blah, blah. And he go, no. Right. That's it. Okay.
Sure.
Like, I roll with that.
Sure. I completely get that.
It was a learning experience for everybody. And like we talked about, we're not going to go into detail, but what I'm not going to do, and I'm going to say it here, and I've said it to other people about this. I said it to you directly. The one thing I know about you is that you're not a racist. And I was not going to let anybody come to me with that.
Right. Now, look, I'm an angry fucking person. And if I got in front of something with anger, there's a chance that I'm a blind, angry person.
I don't even think you were angry.
But I wasn't angry about that. Wasn't me in that sense. Mm-hmm. That wasn't and like you said, facial recognition of discomfort and all these other things that kind of went into, and then you have a different edge too because you're a podcast host. So I do believe a host takes a step back and looks at things as a host. And it's like I discussed with you. I discussed with Keys. I discussed with a few people a code of conduct. Now, Keys was like, dude, look, Hair Down Fridays will not work with that code of conduct. So, no. And I'm like, okay. But it was my place to come to you guys and say, are you down with a code of conduct? Because I would like you to be recognized as
I said no to the code of conduct, too. Because I
understand that.
What I like about everybody's podcast, let me say, there's nobody I don't like because I don't know everybody personally, right? But there are some podcasts that it's hard for me to watch because of how things are spoken and from the position that I stand. It doesn't say that person's podcast is not a good podcast, and it doesn't say that there's not an audience for that person. So I think that person should be whoever the hell they want to be, but I ain't gotta like it and I ain't gotta watch it, right?
Right.
That's my thing. So I don't think that.
I think the code of conduct thing was probably taken a little too seriously by you guys when I said that, because I was more or less just saying like, well, what I was thinking was like that, that warning screen that I started putting on bullshit after that, like the warning screen. I was thinking something like that. A warning screen that we all shared the exact same warning screen.
We all would fail, though, Sean. Let me tell you, there's
not
one person who's doing a podcast right now today who you or somebody cannot watch and think that they found something that was so inappropriate that we let slide or we let say so that's my thing. My thing is that I'm not a person who's going to sit here and play bigger than you, right?
That's
I'm not
fine.
Do that.
My goal of that was to try to congregate around a problem where we could be recognized as reptile media.
And
same thing I said to you, like if you go to NARBC, you still have to pay to get in, but you can get a media badge.
Right.
And nobody knew that. Everybody was like, really? You know, and he's like, wow, I didn't really know that. And I talked to Potter and Ashley, and you know, their position, Brian Potter and Bob Ashley that own NARBC, their position, Brian Potter's position is Lady Tiss Exotics is reptile media. Snakes and the Fat Man is reptile media. Therefore, we must do a service to protect and encourage reptile media. And by saying that, that opens a door to a place in reptiles we ain't never been before. And I like those doors. Just like the door that we opened when ball pythons were the shittiest fucking species in the world. And now they dominate the marketplace as the number one thing that all of you assholes get into the hobby and realize, oh shit, I don't even like these rocks. I like retics. I like monitors. I like tortoises. I like little frogs and stuff that climb on the glass and leave their belly prints. But shut the fuck up. You got started with ball pythons, asshole. You got introduced to the hobby some kind of way. However you come in, I don't care. If your grandma brought you in, if you know you got somebody dropped off a monitor lizard at your door with gunshot wounds, whatever the deal may be, I don't care how you got in to the hobby, just that you're here and that you're progressively pushing the hobby forward for other people as well as you.
Right.
That's the biggest thing I've seen. And that goes back to when you said you were ultrasounding in 2003. I bought an ultrasound machine with Brian Barchak and these people and that people. And I called Jeremy Stone and I said, what do I do? And you know what he told me? Figure it out on your own.
Right.
Click. Figure it out on your own. You know what I fucking did? A week later, I wrote a whole article on King Snake's chat room. I mean, King Snake's forum, the old King Snake forum, which was horrible, but it worked. I wrote a whole article on how to use an ultrasound machine to detect eggs in follicles in pythons and boa constrictors, to detect unborn fetuses in boa constrictors in case she laid babies and didn't get rid of everything, which does happen, and all of these things. And I wrote this, and it was like a week after I got the machine. And the one message that I shined out, and I remember it this very day, is an email from Jeremy at Jeremy Stone Reptiles that said, damn, you learned a lot in a week. That's all it said. Damn, you learned a lot in a week. And I'm like, yeah, and I gave it all away. Just like when I hatched a pinstripe, a $20,000 pinstripe ball python by using liquid Band-Aid on the egg when the egg wet out. Shared all the information. Even wrote the article and sent it off to Johnson & Johnson, the makers of the liquid Band-Aid, with a picture of the box with the pinstripe that I saved on top of the box. And they wrote me back and they said this was the most unusual usage of their product ever, but they were thankful that I told them it was successful. That's it. Johnson & Johnson got back to me and they were like, yo, this is cool. We don't really think it has a place in the market, but awesome. And then the product stopped being made because it dyes your scars purple. Because after you put it on the wound, it heals up. There's a purple scar there forever. Like it just dyes your skin or whatever. So they took it off the market, and now I use school glue in the same way. But again, telling people that how many countless eggs have been saved from foot powder, school glue, liquid Band-Aid, right. How many tens of thousands of dollars have been made and saved in the process of those simple products that some asshole could have said, I'm not telling you, figure it out on your own. What the fuck, dude? Are you kidding me? You know, if we had to figure out everything on our own, man, we'd still be like riding like half of a tree across the water.
Exactly.
Like that's it. Like we really wouldn't be anywhere. We'd be making tools from bones. Like we wouldn't be anywhere had we not shared a collective knowledge. And I do believe that that is the next evolution of this hobby, the sharing of collective knowledge, the going to reptile shows and seeing seminars, people like you, people like me, who have things to say, who have things to teach. And I think these stories, you know, we log them into this. How many times I've told the puzzle story, eventually everyone will know it. But if I didn't ever tell it, then no one
well,
would
it
know.
Definitely is not told enough because people still have questions. People still.
Well, that's just because people are lazy as fuck and they don't do research. It's the only gene. Listen to me. According to Morph Market's Morphpedia, it's one of the only genes on Earth that the researchers were just able to go to YouTube and get the entire history in 18 minutes, 17 minutes.
Oh, wow.
17 minutes of your life. You get the entire puzzle story. That's it. It sounds exactly like I just told it. Maybe without the detail of showing the original puzzle because I recorded it right around that time.
Right.
I recorded it with all the podcast gear in the other room. My mom is my accountant. She's been my accountant for 24 years. She bitched at me for spending $3,000 on studio equipment and private lessons on how to use it all because I never used it. I never used it. And like tax year came around and she had to write it all off. And she was just like, you spent $3,000 on this stuff and it's just sitting there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. And I tried it and I made a 17-minute recording on the history of puzzle. And a week later, Will from Royal Canadian, Maki Goskowicz, and one other client called and spent a total of 35 grand.
Amazing.
So I told my mom, I was like, shut the fuck up about the podcasting gear. Eventually I'll make a podcast. But now it's paid for. That's it. I just like hit the gear, like, fuck that. I just tripled it. I just 10 times the cost of the shit. Shut the fuck up. I'll move on. You know, and then I made the podcast bullshit that both worked for breeders and for my own personal soapbox for several years before I imploded. And ultimately I fell apart at the bottom of my life. Maybe at the top of my game, but at the bottom of my life. And honestly, I reach out to other podcasters that have had similar disruptions, and tell them that you may look normal. Other people may hold you to a normal standard. You are not normal.
See, I
am not normal.
I always put it out there. I let people know. I am
not normal.
That's with me. I have anger management issues.
That's it. I am not normal. I am bipolar in some ways, not always. I am not schizophrenic. I don't have any other health problems that paraplegia has brought.
I'm not bipolar. I am vengeful. It would be on purpose. Like
I'm a Scorpio, so I'm automatically vengeful. I mean, I'm a stinging bug, for fuck's sake. I'm a Scorpio, so I am vengeful by nature, by sign.
I am very, but knowing that about myself, that's why I just tell people, leave me alone, and I leave you alone. You know what I'm saying? Because when it gets, I don't play like other people play. Like
I just got a message yesterday. I just got a message yesterday from a guy to buy wholesale from me. And he says this, I'm reading it word for word. I don't know why everybody has such a problem with you. I've never had an issue. And this guy bought 4 Brazilian rainbow boas from me at a herp show and proceeded to kill them all in a week and didn't hold it against me because he realized he fucked up. That, you know, and that's it. At the end of the day, that's it. Yeah, that's a tragic species right there. You'll have more people kill it on the way home from the reptile show than ever. Like you'll get home from the reptile expo, it'll be like a Tuesday, and all the sales you made Saturday and Sunday are just dead. Because they put it in they Brazilian rainbow, they ball python it. They bring it home, they put it in a 10-gallon tank with a screen top with a heat light and a paper towel, and they dry it out. No, they put it in a beef jerky. Yeah, they put it in a beef jerky dehumidifier. And I'm like, well, did you want a crispy, tasty one that tasted like a dried snake? I said, because a Chinese person might give you good money for that. I mean, some Chinese person out there would gnaw down on that motherfucker and like find all the flavor in that pungent odor. But no, that's not you, I don't think. What the fuck? You know, and you're like, at the end of the day, the guy was buying wholesale to flip, and he didn't realize what he needed to do for that species because he just was a flipper, and he never took the time to understand what an animal needed so much as what he needed from an animal. And that's the trouble. Therein lies the problem. Those who don't understand what animals need and only pull their own needs from the animal. And that's kind of a tough spot. It's where I'm at right now with no employees because I'm taking care of my collection by myself, and in a wheelchair, that's not real. I mean, I've got friends coming to help me, but it's literally that charitable help. It's when they have time. And I don't want my animals to wait.
All of the extra energy from, because I know we talked about a lot, and we're going to definitely end the podcast because we almost 2 hours.
Yeah, that's fine. I know we went
really long. I want to say that, you know, even though you have the disability, right? What is a drive in you that even through this, like even though you haven't been doing the podcast, every damn day you're doing something. You're building something, creating something. Like
I'm running these machines. I try to run these machines every day, at least the router and the laser, and try to find projects for them that can both enhance our lives as animal keepers. Mostly I work in the aquarium space now. Just because that's where my business is right now. And honestly, snake racks and snake cages are beat. They're fucking beat, man. I mean, it beat all the profit out of it. I mean, we're importing a container of plastic from China. So there is profit there when I'm buying plastic at $50, $60 a sheet. There's profit there. when I'm landing it at half the cost of like what say Sea Serpents is probably paying for a domestic plastic, you know. But at the same time, Sea Serpent's market share and popularity is great. Why would I want to fuck with that, first of all? And why would I want to answer those many emails? Why would I answer you fucking people? Why would, you know, that's a lovely thing about my aquarium gig right now, making these control boards for this company called Coral View. I don't even have to box them, Nicole. I don't have to answer your emails. I don't have to tell you how to use it. Right. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is build it. And it's the first time in my life that I've just put my nose to the grind and done what Ozzy always told me to shut up and breathe. Shut up. You know what I mean? Shut up and breathe. But now I'm just shut up and machining. And that's what I've been doing for the last few months. I've been filling out orders for one company for basically one product that I'm just making a bunch of. And then I'm making LED light up signs for reef people too, which is kind of fun in itself, even though I get tired of doing it. But when I tell you what's cool, when I go online and I see a shot of someone's aquarium that they love, that's got all this electronic gear and all this organization and all this time has been put into it, and then they decided to cap it off with my LED sign. And then they're like, bro, this LED sign, it does a lot more than I thought it did. And you're like, yeah, because it's better than the other guys. Because all I did was take what the other guy did and finish it. That's all I did. I finished it. I made it to where he can't change it better because we fucking did it already. That's all. You know, as I was talking to Ben from isopod.com earlier about buying an autoclave for $2,000 to sterilize bedding. And he's like, but that adds cost. And I said, yeah, but the other guy's not doing it. All you need to make a product amazing is finish it. Just finish it. Take the gecko feeder that everyone is using. I've just redesigned it into a gecko feeder that can't fall off unless you want it to. It can hold up 750 grams of gecko, which means a full-grown pair of Leachianus geckos can eat at the same time, hanging on my magnetic feeder. And they can't knock the bowls out, but you can take them out with one hand and sterilize the surface that they eat on, all at the same time. And buy replacements for each part anytime you need it, and break the whole feeder down into parts and sterilize the whole thing if you need to. And honestly, it's just a finished product. I took a gecko feeder that I had 3 arguments of. It falls off. It's hard to replace, and the animals knock the bowls out. And I just simply fixed all of those 3 problems and finished the product. What thermostat are you using? I'm going to finish with this. What thermostat are you using? Herpstat?
Herpstat 6.
Herpstat 6. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you next year to a thermostat that is both on your phone and on a tablet in your facility. There's absolutely no digital readouts on each cage because you don't need them. You don't need to know what your heat tape is set at on each rack because it's all in your phone. And if anything's deviated, it's notified you and you haven't got a notification. It's all good. What happens if your heat tape draws a little too much voltage? The system monitors the voltage intake and alerts you and cuts off the system's power.
Which I always say. I think me and Matt from Ebony and I already talked about that. Like, what we want to have. If anything, we just want the shit to shut all the way off. Just shut it down.
Shut it down. Push a notification. Right. Push a notification to you. Okay. A box with 4 outlets in it, 4 sensor ports, and 2 drive ports. The drive ports are 12-volt drive ports. So those are for terrarium people if they want to drive like misters or small pumps, water pumps. They can drive them with that. So what we have is a controller that has 4 proportional outlets that can be dimmable based on 4 digital temperature sensors that can be changed to fit the outlets however you want. You can divide each outlet to a temperature sensor, or you can have the temperature sensors fall in order to protect each other. One monitors the other, monitors the other, monitors the other. And again, remember, this system was designed to keep living reef aquarium systems in all of their intricacy, including testing water. We're testing water now with the unit by having it pump water into a vessel, stir it around, mix a solution, test it, pump water out, and give you a reading to your phone about how much calcium's in your water, how hard the water is, the important things you need to keep a reef tank. And I have knowledge of the most expensive reef tank in the world being run on this system with no faults. And I also am running a lake system at a subdivision here in Louisiana with the same system. Waterfalls, water replacement, water retention, monitored all of it. The company called me and they said, we had a company come in, quote us 15 grand for this. The guy showed up for one day and never came back. What would you do it for? And I said, well, I can do it for 900. And they're like, 900. We want to pay you 1,500 to come do it. And I'm like, okay, but it's only going to cost me 900. I'm just saying. And I'm making the profit on the 900. So if you still want to give me 600 more just for peace of mind. And the guy's like, bro, if my boss, that's what he said. If my boss sees a quote from you for under 1,000, he's not going to do it because he's not going to believe that you can do it for that cost. Because the other company charges 15 grand, was going to charge us 15 grand. Your system costs less than the one guy came out for the one day cost us. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not even going to hook it up. I'm going to charge you 1,500. I'm going to tell you I'm coming to hook it up. Then I'm going to make you do it on your own because I want you to know how to fix it when it's fucked up. And that's what happened. The guy's like, bro, I'm tired of waiting on you. And I'm like, good, try it. It's super easy. And he hit me back in an hour. And he's like, bro, it's all working. It was super easy. And I'm like, yeah, no. That's why that's why I didn't come out, because I wanted you to do it. You know, and that's what the reptile line is going to be. The reptile line is going to be something, and we manufacture it here in America. It's made here on U.S. soil. It's not Chinese components. It's not sent off and made somewhere else. So if we have a problem, we can change it. If we have to alter something, we're not stuck with a container of these products that we have to, shuffle off to all of you to get rid of in order to change the design. That's not the case here. And I think it has a lot of promise, Nicole. I think this is the next step. I think I also have an idea for a show that I think would be fabulous. I want to take an expo to a hotel with 40 tables or less, stock it with amazing vendors that I know personally that are coming by invitation only, meaning no vendors can apply to be there. You can apply all you want. We'll have an application page and we will consider you. But if you don't look like the best of what you do in the area you do it in, we're not doing this. Meaning that 5 ball python people will be there, 4 crested gecko people, 3 bearded dragon people, 2 monitor people, 1 primate mammal type person, 1 supply dealer, 1 insect vendor, 1 rodent vendor. And it will be something that will be regionalized. So where when I come to Maryland, you will be my podcaster. When I go to New York, Chris would be my podcaster. When I go to Southern California, MJ would be my podcaster. And I want to bring shows to every corner of this country, from Maine to Oregon. I would like to do Pac Northwest. I would like to see Bob Vu display in the Pac Northwest. I would like to see a vendor situation where I have cases for you to where you can literally jump on a plane and FedEx some cool snakes and come make an appearance just to be you and make money. And I'll give you a table for free. That kind of thing. And I hope that sounds interesting, because that hotel would be something that we would all be in. And it would be something that vendors would just go upstairs and then go out to eat. And that's it. Small shows. None of this big grandeur. None of this. Like literally 40 tables of people that make serious fucking money off of people that want to buy from serious fucking motherfuckers. I hate to say it like that, but I do mean it in that sense of Samuel L. Jackson's serious fucking snakes and serious fucking people, right? Doing serious fucking things and not deviating from that. Being like, you come to, hey, you know what I've heard of? I've heard of it. And maybe this lets it out of the bag. Maybe I don't do it, but I already registered to .com and, I dare you to take it from me, but it's the Reptile Farmers Market.
Okay.
And it's only captive red, except for maybe one wild caught guy who sits there and tells everyone how wild caught his shit is. Or he's out. You lose one snake in my venue, one reptile in my venue, it gets auctioned off for U.S. ARC and you're never allowed back. I've never lost an animal. I've never lost an animal in the history of vending a show. There's no excuse why you should.
Right.
None whatsoever. That means to me you're a sloppy keeper and I don't want to deal with you. Okay. You put wild caught shit on your table and you try to tell me it's captive bred. Kindly get the fuck out of the hotel right now. Like, pack your shit right now in front of everyone, or I will sit my ass here doing the entire show and tell everybody how shitty your stuff is. I'll literally sit there the entire show and be like, this guy's selling crap. Just skip this booth. And you can sit there all day at my show and vend if you like, but you're not going to sell anything. And that's it. I don't know what that sounds like to you, but to me, it sounds like something I'd welcome. It sounds like, I'm tired of this,
especially for like being a newer breeder. I love it. Well, the smaller big shows. Let me say,
yeah. That. What if you could go to a hotel venue where you could stay? Like you're in Maryland and I'm coming to Manhattan,
right?
And you're like, fuck, I'd go to that, right?
Right.
And I mean, you'd drive or you'd fly. I mean, that's it. So. Right. So get this. You know what the Reef guys do? They got it really down. They have a show on Saturday in one city and another show on Sunday 5 hours away. And on Saturday, they pack their shit and they drive to the next venue and they make a full day's living off of a new town of people. And they do 2 shows in one weekend.
Wow.
Because then you have the client that knows that the show is only open from noon to 5. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that way, everyone can pack up at 5, have enough time to drive to the next city, stay in the hotel there, set up the next morning with all their stuff, and make another full day's pay, full weekend's pay off of that weekend. The one guy that told me about this business model, he's in Chicago in the North American Coral Labs. And he said, my wife hated when I travel 2 weekends a month. And since I started doing this, she hasn't said a word because I'm bringing $15,000 cash a weekend home.
A weekend. Hello.
And I'm like, God damn, boy, you don't learn how to beat it. And he's like, dude, ain't nobody doing those shows. Like, you're not doing that on the internet.
Right.
And you're not going to do that on the internet. You're not going to flip as much inventory fast on the internet. You're not going to have the customer outreach. You're not going to have the isolation on the customer. Right. So honestly, and I'm not just talking about a big name here. I'm talking about a big name and a small name and maybe a name in the middle. Right. And I'm not talking about only my friends. I'm talking about people that vend with utmost professionalism. And it will be a goddamn sharp show. And there's already a coral farmers market. So similar idea. Hotel venue, it comes in, it vendors fly in, they fly out, and it's fucking awesome. And it gets people places that you would not normally see them. So think about that. Think about ways that you can help me brainstorm to A, refine an expo,
right,
and B, refine just how much we can educate people as a whole, because you have been out there showing these retics in such a loving way that would normally scare me. But I trust you.
And this is the thing. When you talk about you not getting enough credit, Sean, no one was doing that. That's why I did it when I got them. That's why I said once I master them and once I realize what their mentality can do, that I can touch a retic tongue without getting wrapped up in things like that. If I build the right relationship with them, that's why I do it. I was having this conversation on the last podcast I did with Jake from JKR, who is a big retic guy.
No, Jake Klotz? Big Jake?
Yep.
That was on my show? Yeah, Big Jake. Oh, yeah, he's the one to talk about big retics with for sure.
Yep. And so
he's got actuals. Now, it's a lot of big retics. Okay. It's a lot of large species. And I like Jake because Jake has a really closed sense on them where he doesn't breed a ton and he keeps it rare, right? Like we're talking keeping it rare.
Yeah, rare. Too. I just think, and I was sharing with Jake and he agreed. When I got into them, other than like the books that I bought and I read, and the plenty videos, and of course Kevin McCurley, that was my reason for visiting, is determining if I was going to breed them. When I went to visit Kevin to see how he maintained them and his thought processes and things like that, which was definitely in line with how I felt about these animals. But there were no videos of people showing these animals as sweet, calm, innocent snakes like they can be. Like I tell people,
you got Jay like Jedi batting them away.
Now, don't get me wrong. If I go in front of any of my retics right now and start swinging a bat or a fan, you know what I'm saying, something like that, they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" And they probably get defensive, but they don't have a reason to. So I don't see it, right? Because that's not what we do. We have I go to the enclosure. I pay attention
Right.
to them. I touch them. They come to me. They help me. But
Right.
it wasn't out there.
But then I
And
can
now
discuss
you
a guy
start
like
to see more people do it, Sean. You're
Right.
starting to see more people show retics not being these big mean monsters.
I'm ready for this exact thing to happen with red blood pythons.
Okay.
Learn how to fucking hold them, and it won't be a problem. Okay. You don't hold a blood python like you hold a retic. You don't let it noodle over your hand. You keep it flat, like it's on the flat ground all the time. And if you're not big enough to hold it flat, put it down on a table that's flat.
Okay.
And don't fucking hold it over your arm like a noodle draped over your arm. It's going to bite you and shit all over you at the same exact time. And you're going to be blood covered on one arm and shit covered on the other arm and do nothing but yell and scream about how red blood pythons are the most awful species ever. When now we're getting to a point of morphology, we have an albino T negative, an albino T positive, several bad ass codoms like wrought iron, matrix, goldeneye, fucking there's a few others, slackline, there's a few others, right? There's the toba, the fire blood with black-eyed Lucy, and there's a piebald blood that's just as piebald as a ball python, just the same kind of, but thankfully there's no double line striping, or else I would accuse them all of hybridizing a ball python 10, 15 years ago and breeding it back to blood. I mean, because I think you could probably do that convincingly now with the way I'm going to say the way you guys think, because I don't consider myself a ball python breeder at all. The way, like, if I'm going to talk about ball python people from a distant, like, oh, you people like that. If I'm going to be a real fucking prick and I'm going to be like that, I'm like, you people stopped caring about what a ball python looked like some generations ago. And some of you novice folks need to learn what the structure of a snake looks like before you start breeding them together and making more of them and breeding more of them together. Because most of these people have no idea about what a shark mouth truly is, unless it's greatly sharked, versus me, who sees it when it's this much short of what it should be. And I'm like, I can see it in the color. I don't even need to see the head. Right. That's what happened on the Greg Graziani podcast, when I was like, hey, if you listen to that podcast, that was great with Dave Kaufman and me and Greg. That was a wonderful audio only podcast. Your boy's there. Retic Man, Garrett Hartle's in that podcast. He sat on the sidelines and like commented haphazardly throughout here and there, you know, and that's when Graziani shows me a picture of this weird looking ball python he tried to prove out generationally. Like for 10 years, he tried to prove this thing out. He couldn't prove it out. And I literally look at the photograph in 1 second. I say, you didn't prove it out because it's got a fucked up head. And he says, what do you mean it has a fucked up head? And Kaufman says, what do you mean it has a fucked up head? And I'm like, dude, if you had this snake right now, and Graziani said, I do, she's right over there. And I'm like, go get that bitch and go get a normal ball python and I'll show you what they look like. And he's like, and that's exactly how I worded it. And so he goes to the rack, he gets the snake out. We put the snakes like this to where the head of the weird one is on the head of a regular one. And Dave Kaufman instantly says, oh, it does have a fucked up head. That's it. I can see it. Like when you guys hatch classic jungle combo morphs now, you guys get so excited. I got a new morph. It's badass. I got a new morph. Oh, yeah. And I see it on Facebook. And I'm like, bro, I don't even have the heart to comment anymore. When somebody tags me and they're like, Sean, what do you think? I don't even answer it. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not going to shit on somebody else's dreams. I'm going to let them just find out on their own that they didn't get a winning lottery ticket 3 years from now when they've invested more money in it. Like, it's like, oh, I won the lottery, but I'm going to go buy 15,000 more lottery tickets until maybe I get there. And that's what proving a project is, right? You found a lotto ticket, then you've bought more lotto tickets by feeding it, growing it, breeding it, saving its babies back. You've invested more and more and more into the lotto until maybe one day you find out that you actually hit the fucking lotto or not. And that's really what it is. Again, back to that investment. Hey, you give me all this money, I give you 50-50 odds. Dude looks at you like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? At the end of the day, I still got to roll dice. Yeah, fuck this. You know, and that's exactly how a lot of people look at it. But when you look at it from that standpoint, I think you can also lose a lot of value too, you know, if that makes sense. But yeah, back to it. I think retics need outreach. I think Garrett's done a great job with the super dwarfs and all that, trying to like get government to maybe be in a position. Like I'm saying, reticulatus is a problem for you. Okay. If you have super dwarfs, they need to be like Python Coyote. Okay. Python Jampea. Jampaensis. Okay.
Right.
Makes sense. Does it? Python reticulatus, mainland, big python. Python Jampaensis, 10, 12-foot python. Python Coyotensis, 7 foot. 7-foot ball python, 7-foot reticulated like ball python. So what happens here, Nicole? What happens when Python reticulatus is made illegal? That means all of those super dwarfs are also illegal. But if we make Python Coyotensis, Coyote, or Jampea, or like we have these islands, they look different. You're going to tell me a Coyote retic looks like a retic? No.
Well, it's so for me, a retic is a retic, but they definitely look different, but the personalities are the same in a smaller body type.
That's fine. That's fine. But when we're looking at it from an argument,
I mean, even if you look at like something like a ocelot, it looks nothing like a
but I'm talking about the actual locations of the islands themselves. Like if you look at a Coyote retic from that island and you compare it to a mainland Komodo Island retic or whatever.
I mean, it's two totally different snakes. I mean,
they look almost the same. They look like one's a dwarf of the other, but so does a South African rock python, an Angolan python. You know, again, like we can get into things that look like things that aren't things of.
Right.
But retics have been retics forever. And we discussed this on the show with Jay Klotz. Specifically, we discussed this topic of can we get reticulated, and on the Nick Mutton episode, can we get reticulated pythons in the 18,000 some odd islands of Indonesia broken up into species that could be legislated properly versus you losing the entire fucking lot? If a legislative body came to that. Now, obviously, a show between you and I could be divided into 2 or 3 shows. I
was going to say, yeah, because this is my thing, and I was telling Jake, like I think none of them need to be. The whole thing is the education part. I think because for me, my dwarf is more to manage than my mainlands because it lacks the confidence that the mainlands have, in my opinion. So my thing is that
that's
I don't. It's a fact. If anybody deals with mainlands, dwarfs, and super dwarfs, ask them which one as an adult is easier to manage. And it's definitely, but even as babies, I think as a baby, the full response in the dwarfs and the super dwarfs are way greater than in the
How big is your largest retic?
The largest one now is about 14, 15. That's the largest.
And how long have you managed personally a snake of that size? How long?
Personally, for 4.5 years.
Okay. Now, knowing what you know in 4.5 years, I assume you have not taken a strong bite yet.
I've never been bitten by.
So again, similar scenario. If you ask Garrick DeMeyer, I'm sure you know who Garrick DeMeyer is. He's got a fairly big name now. He got bit by a 15-foot retic maybe 12 years ago and suffered serious nerve damage in his hand and can't make a fist in that hand. Now, it's no different than a mechanic who got his arm cut underneath the hood and cut that tendon in the arm right here. It's on the top of the wrist. It's right in this area right here. You take a strong bite right here, you lose your hand. You can't even pick shit up.
Oh,
you literally can't even pick shit up.
Which one is it? This is all reconstructed from all this was gone from a dog.
See, there we go. Okay, so you're a dog bite victim. You're a dog bite victim.
I was paralyzed in this arm for 6 months.
Oh my God, I feel so bad for you. I'm sorry that happened to you, but at the same time, this is one of my biggest private, personal, local arguments, Nicole. You've hit it. The Reptiles show model that allows people to bring their fucking dogs. If you have a blindness, seizures, or a heart issue, my paraplegic ass will never give you shit about a service dog. If you require a service dog for any other purpose than those 3 things, I'd like to know what it is because you don't fucking need one. Sorry. Take it from my paralyzed ass. You don't need one. I'm dead from here down. Not the waist, the high chest. I can't do a sit-up. I cannot get up off the floor if you push me out of my chair. Fact. But I'm going to tell you right now, that doesn't mean that I couldn't learn. I'm just too fat and lazy and incapable athletically to do it. I've tried. I'm going to admit to you right now, getting up off the floor as a paralyzed person is a whole nother mountain to climb. That's like Mount Everest to an old guy. It's like Mount Everest to a 75-year-old. Like, really, you put it right in front of me. I ain't climbing a mountain. But I'm going to tell you right now, dude, I don't need a fucking service dog. And neither do you. If your attitude, if your personality is so fickle that you need a dog there for your comfort, you need to not spend the money on traveling to the reptile show with your dog and spend it on a fucking therapist because you're not a human being.
My only exception to that is the military, because I do believe that a lot of people who were in the military.
PTSD dogs?
Yes.
Okay, PTSD dogs. All right, my same thing. I've witnessed some horrible things, losing my child, losing my legs, other things wise. I got PTSD worse than most people I know. I don't let it affect my life to the point where I'm a fucking dog. Even though I have a dog at home and I love my dog, I'm not bringing my dog to a venue to do business, because if that's how you feel about your stress, you need not be there.
But see, I don't know, Sean.
I have a very staunch thing about this. If you have PTSD, your ass needs to be in a therapist's office or at home or doing something else that could not potentially affect me.
Yeah. So, but part of coming out of that. So first, let me go back.
Yes.
I can relate to what you're saying because I'll give you an example. I'm in full
I support the military. I support the military fully.
Yeah, I'm in full Semino, right? So I'm in surgical menopause groups, right? Okay. And one of the things in those groups that drives me crazy is how the women act like they can't get it together, type of thing, you know? And I'm like,
yeah, but that's hormonal and that's different. Yes. Your body is producing a chemical that you are no longer producing. That is not PTSD.
But listen,
PTSD is not that.
Listen, even then, though, I feel knowing what the problem is, because I know what the problem is. I knew what I was going to wake up and feel. I knew what to eat. I knew what to drink. I knew what not to drink
still
anymore.
Not that chemical in your body.
Yeah, like it's certain things you just couldn't do no more. And you know this. Like people always ask for reptiles and cocktails. They was like, well, you used to drink one. I can't do that no more every Saturday. Like I have to drink occasionally. like really occasionally.
Very, very strictly. And to know that about yourself is very lovely. But most people don't know that about themselves until it's way too late.
Oh yeah, you can't. Like you have to take
just like painkillers, same thing. Right? Like I see your painkiller thing and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm not on opiates and I've been here for 11 years. What's your fucking problem?
Yeah.
Really? What's your fucking problem?
To go back to my point, but that's the strength in us. I do believe that.
And we can't hold people up to that same standard, even though I want to.
Right.
I want to. Right. I want to hold you to that standard because here's why. You're a dog bite victim. Yeah. I'm not. Well, I got bit by my own dog during a dog fight that I broke up. That's different. You're a dog bite victim. I'm in a wheelchair. I don't know if you've ever been around dogs when they're around things like assistive devices like wheelchairs or other major exterior medical devices.
Yeah.
You know what really gets a dog going? A headset.
Oh, I was going to say, or like something fast, like a bike going by real fast.
Sure, a bike going by real fast, right? But a headset, a halo that they put on someone with a neck injury that positions your head with the metal and stuff. Dude, a dog sees that guy and wants to end that guy. You know, a dog sees someone that has a mental disability that's super noticeable in a different way than it sees a normal person, because most dogs will naturally try to eliminate the errors around them in nature. It's what they do. Right. They do it to their own children. They do it to other animals' children intentionally. Like something's wrong with you.
The end of their lives, they'll go and isolate themselves to die.
Exactly. Dogs do a lot of really very interesting things that I think people should learn from in their wild sense. In other words, your pet dog at home that comes when you call it and sits and sleeps with you and licks your newborn baby's face may try to rip my fucking arm off because it doesn't know what a wheelchair is like. And I recently got into some heat at a reptile show by telling the promoter of said show that if anybody's dog came at me like that, I've got a knife on my wheelchair. I'm going to stab the fucking dog in the side of its head, and it's going to bleed out in front of everyone at the show. I use those exact words, and he lost it on those words. And he had a right to, right? Like I had no boundaries with him at that point, but we haven't had boundaries our whole life. 15 years we've known each other. I've never had a boundary with this man, but to tell him my honest truth. And the honest truth is I know 3 people in the reptile industry whose children under the age of 2 were mauled, permanently disfigured by dogs that other people trusted until they mauled a fucking infant. So you're going to bring your dog that's a PTSD dog out in public with a vest on it like it's a fucking, it's not a service dog, dude. Let's be honest. It hasn't gone through what a service dog has gone through. It hasn't gone through any shoots and chests. Hasn't gone through any stress tests, like somebody jumping out of the corner with an umbrella in its face and popping it and all the other crazy cool tests that they put a service dog through in public. That your fucking pit bull or Doberman or whatever that you have as a service dog that you think is a PTSD dog is a potential threat to other people around it. That is my view. My view is only that, because a PTSD dog with a vest on it was a pit bull, and it proceeded to come by my table at a reptile show, shit on the floor, piss on the floor, and the owner walked away from it. So that is never a service dog, and that is never a service dog owner that allows that to happen. And that's my point. Again, dead from here up. If you come at me, it's a threat to my life, and I'm going to do what I have to do. I still see dogs as a public danger.
Two different things.
I still see that.
But you're talking to people who, because I have an issue with that too, who fake service dogs or fake dogs for their
I do not believe you have a pit bull. I'm sorry, I've grown up around pit bulls. I do not believe you have a pit bull. It's a service dog. I'm sorry. I don't believe
so it. I would tell you, working in property management, I've seen a lot of those scenarios. And one of the things that we did require is for, in this county, if you're going to say it's a service dog, you have to show proof that it went through the training to be a service dog. And
you know what I was told? That the reptile show is not allowed to ban anyone if at the door they say they medically require it.
Well, that's because that's the laws now. Like you can't, like the way the laws are.
Not in my law. Not when I have my reptile show. The reptile farmers market won't work like that. You better show up with a fucking permit for your dog to be there, or I will throw you the fuck out.
I think that protects you though. Because like, let's say that's tell people that if your dog, your service dog, do bite somebody, I want to have proof that it was certified by.
Because otherwise, it's just a loaded gun. Yeah, it's just a loaded gun.
I do agree with that,
in my opinion. And you are I hate to say poster child because it's such a fucking rundown term, but really you are a representative of that group of people. I think that I don't know the circumstances of your dog bite. My girlfriend was attacked at a dog park publicly.
It was out. I don't blame the dog even to this day. In fact, my PTSD from it. So what happened was I'm an all animal lover, and dogs being one of them.
I am too. I mean, that's it. But again, I'll treat it like a crap.
One of my cousins reached out to me because it was a family. They had 3 dogs, Presa Canaria and Pit Bull Terrier mixed, right?
Yeah, that's a hell of a mix.
They had to move. They was being evicted from where they were living, and they only could take 2 dogs. So they wanted to take the mother and father because they had those dogs the longest. And then the baby that they had, which wasn't at that time, Messiah was like 2 years old. So Messiah was like 2 years old. Videos of the dog we had, the dog was so intelligent. Even that day, I was sick the day that the dog was brought to me. I have pictures to this day of me and the dog sleeping on the sofa, face to face. My husband took the dog out back that day. The dog was so intelligent. Like you could put his food down. He wouldn't eat until you told him to eat. He can climb the fence if you told him to climb the fence. He just was intelligent.
Well, that was a terrier in there with the bulldog, who's basically bred perfectly for intelligence.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, amazing animal. The next morning, we wake up, and let me tell you how God works. My son is normally the first to touch, get all of the animals awake, turn on snake lights and stuff like that. This morning, I said, let me do it. I want to see how the dog acts the next morning. So I go down there, get the dog, bring the dog up here, feed him. I'm sitting on the sofa, rubbing him. Everything is normal. I go back upstairs and God said, turn around. And I turn around and the dog just looked different and I knew it was about to happen. So everything I knew, talking back we was talking about before, I didn't want
That's a bizarre scenario, don't you think?
Well, I'm going to tell you what happened. So I give him my arm. I give the dog my arm and because if you're going to take something, take the arm because I need my neck. I didn't want him to get my femoral artery. We talked about that. Yeah. And let's go. And when I tell you all of this was going, I don't know if people can tell.
I can see some difference in the skin tone and stuff like that.
This is all gone. And so all this was put back kind of, but like my arm they're different sizes.
Wow. So, what an experience.
It happened so fast. Now my Rottweiler at the time was in his room, but his room is closed, so you can hear him trying to get through the door.
Right.
So the dog lets go. He walks literally backwards, like he realized and start weeping. The dog starts to cry. My flesh is everywhere, Sean. So I run upstairs. I call my husband. My husband pop up. Of course, my husband's going to kill the dog. First thing is do not kill the dog because that was going to make it worse. The police get there. They're like, where the dog at? Drawing the guns. Do not kill the dog. That's people. So they get me to the hospital. It was so bad that they tell my husband she has to go straight into surgery. This is really
right.
So my husband, my husband calls because I can't call my job or nothing. My husband calls my job and tell him what happened. Everybody freaking out. I go into surgery. And I'm on my way into surgery, and I asked the police because the police officer, one of them stayed with me the entire time because I felt like I was going to pass out because I was losing so much blood.
Wow.
But the ambulance, Sean, wouldn't come up to the house, and it's a thing where they have to make sure that all is clear for everybody coming in, the police and all this other stuff.
Right.
You know? So it's a process to that.
Right, when it's a dangerous animal, because it was a dangerous animal on site.
See him. And I'm like, right, I'm coming in. I can see him. So they explain that process. So I said to my husband, I said to the police officer while I'm going into surgery, I said, where did my husband go? And he said, oh, shit. My husband went to go kill the dog. By the time he got here, the neighbor said that the animal control had literally just took the dog back, which made me happy.
Right.
When I woke up, the county killed it anyway because at that particular point, the dog was now my dog. The only way that the dog could stay alive is if I took the dog back into my possession.
Which your son was how old? Your son was how old?
My son was grown. I mean, he special needs, but he still was grown.
Okay.
So he had to be like 19, 20 at the time.
Okay.
So they said that in order for me to keep the dog, in order for the dog to stay alive, that I have to be willing to take it back in my possession. And of course, at this time, I just came out of major surgery from this dog. I wasn't going to take it back. And my husband wasn't going to have it. So they had to put the dog down. You know what bothers me to this day, and I still have all of this dog stuff. It's the fact that the dog died. The whole point of me getting Sean in the first place, so the dog wouldn't go to the animal shelter.
So the dog wouldn't go. Right.
And to this day, whenever I think about him, and so my husband always found it amazing that the entire time all I kept talking about was the dog.
Yeah, you almost felt like you let the dog down.
Yeah, that's what it was. I let the damn dog down.
You were the caretaker and you didn't take care. That was how it was. In the end of it, you sacrificed yourself.
And that's it. Therapy, like the lady.
That's exactly it. And let me tell you this, that in my opinion, leaving the dog home for the weekend while you're at a reptile show with a dog sitter or in a kennel is more humane than bringing it to the dog show. Because if your dog even snaps at somebody and they request it, it goes down. It goes down. Period.
But to your point, they said
leave your fucking dog at home and you'd be safe.
The dog had an episode. He was fine the first day because it was like I'm visiting a daycare. It's like I'm here with these people for one day, but the next morning his routine changed. That motorcycle that he normally will get up and hear, he didn't hear it. He didn't have anyone running him up the street. Like his routine changed. So the dog went into a panic, and they called it a panic of rage.
I have to explain to my mother and my daughter that dogs don't understand fucking English. That's it. Because when they get mad at the dog, they talk to the dog. And I'm like, I know you've humanized this dog. I explain this to them at home and they hate it. They get in fights. They fucking hate. Get out of the house. We don't even want you here. Because they realize how stupid they were being. And I'm like, you know, when you yelled at the computer to hurry up, you're stupid. You humanized a piece of equipment, right? You put your own human feelings on that thing and wasted your time on that thing. No matter how long you wait, that computer is never going to be a human, and it's never going to humanize anything about itself, even if it's AI and it talks like a girl and it tells you it has feelings.
Right.
It's still got a computer idea of a human life, right? It's not, you didn't humanize it. When you stubbed your toe on the door, you're mad at the fucking door. You know, you're mad at the, I learned this in psychology, that you're instantly put your own emotional attachment and your own emotional expectations on anything and everything, whether they be people, your spouse, your child, your dog, your computer, your door frame, whatever it is at that moment that's affect you, you immediately humanize it and make it an enemy or a friend. And in that way, we are wrong, because a dog is a dog is a dog. And in fact, a dog is not even a dog. A dog has been inbred and selectively bred for many different reasons. Some dogs have been bred to kill people. Some dogs have been bred to fight each other. Some dogs have been bred to go and get a squirrel that you shot, you know, and then you can't breed it. Like, have you seen a shepherd without being trained? Like, that alone is genetic nature versus nurture right in front of you.
Right.
You've seen an Australian cattle dog, drop him on the ground with 20 chickens. Take him out of your fucking RV and off your desk and take the bow out of his hair and stop putting, perfume in his fucking hair and let him run around with some chickens and see what he does. The fucking thing will roast the chickens right up. You'll have a round of chickens. You'll be like, why are those chickens standing in a ring? And that dog be sitting there like, I wonder why. You know, and genetically we bred dogs that way. So are you really going to tell me that your dog won't hurt me when your dog's never seen a wheelchair? When your dog's never seen an autistic child out of control because of loud sounds and public excitement? Like, really, I ran a reptile store for 10 years that had dogs in it. And I watched a bull terrier and a Doberman react to people in all kind of ways. You know, my Shiba Inu never hated on anybody except a dwarf. It's the only person he ever hated on. Shiba Inu lived for 13 years as one of the most aggressive dog breeds that is commonly kept as pets. Shiba Inus will bite the fuck out of you, but they will warn you first. They'll show you a big tooth and they'll go, and they'll whine like that. When you see a Shiba and it goes and shows you a tooth and it goes, and it makes a little weird whine, you leave it the fuck alone, or else you're going to get all of that tooth, period. It's a Japanese dog, and it's like an Akita. It's a miniature Akita, and it ain't no different than an Akita. Just like a Chow, same thing. Chow, same thing. A lot of people are scared of them. They're a Spitz type dog.
I don't think a Chow would ever be qualified as. That's a good point. Like, you talk about the pit bull, a Chow
would never be qualified as a service dog. As a service dog. However, I've met an Akita that would be a perfect service dog. Doesn't mean that Akita is a service dog breed now.
Right.
Doesn't mean shit. Pit bull can be amazing. You could give it a child of any age and it never bite a thing. I know the dog breed. I know hate the owner, not the breed. I get that bumper sticker. I see it all through the South. Let I remind you all. Pit bulls and parolees got thrown out of California. Where did they go? To my hometown. This is a shitty place for the pit bull dog. I'm sorry to say. Boudreaux's bloodlines run rampant through these parts, and they're all fighting dog bloodlines. Maybe now they herd, and now they work, and now they're service dogs and PTSD dogs. But for 200 years, they were bred in the South to kill each other and other animals, and possibly even people, depending on the group of people you're talking about. Yet I've watched dogfight videos from Japan where they have ringside veterinarians. Some people would say that that's humane. Some people would say that that's awful. In America, that's awful. It's not something we do. But we watch horse races. We race dogs. You know, we do horrible things to animals. We eat pigs like crazy. And our North American factory pig farms are awful places. If you enjoy bacon, you enjoy animal suffering to a new level. You truly do. And as smart as a pig is, as smart as a dolphin, possibly smarter than a human. and we treat them like absolute shit. Like, it's awful. I do eat pork. I fucking will smoke a pork butt. That'll be awesome. I'll cook some bacon. That'll kill you with all kinds of shit, whether it be sugar and maple syrup or barbecue sauce and hot and seasoned salt. I'll make you some bacon that'll fuck you up. But at the end of the day, that goddamn pig that bacon came from suffered a horrible life for us to eat it. More horrible than any chicken ever suffered, too. That's what's sad. And people don't think about that. Chickens are dumb, dude. You put a chicken that's been in a box its whole life on the ground, you know what it does? It stands there long enough for somebody at Sanderson Farms to pick it up by its feet, lift it up, and hook it onto a hook that drags it through a machine that does everything to it. Kills it, bleeds it, plucks it, skins it, packages it. But they'll sit there and let you do it. But yet a pig, you go visit a pig. You ever spent time with pigs before?
I'm not a fan of live pigs.
If you spend time with a pig, you'll find a new operation,
a new stuff like that. But I don't like pigs or chickens. I don't like chickens either.
Chickens are dumb as fuck. Pigs, however, I find to have intelligence outside of us and outside of most animals. Again, dolphins, whales, people, pigs.
Definitely dolphins. Yeah.
Okay, like we're there. Pigs are there. Trust me, pigs are there in that same faculty group. But people don't consider that at all when they taste so yummy. And we need lots of them, because bacon comes from the tummy and they've only got so much tummy and that's it. We need more bacon. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. And at what point was I a factory farm? I'm not an animal rights activist, Nicole, and I'm going to end this really because I could go on forever with you. I'm not an animal rights activist. I do believe that we have a stewardship and a responsibility. However, I do also believe that some of the people in the reptile industry are kind of driving us down this channel of bad things and producing a lot and not enough public outreach, not enough telling people what it takes. Like I literally had these guys work in my booth with me this weekend that were like, dude, I never knew a reptile show could be like this, but we made it like that. You understand? We had everything set up. We had the boxes labeled with everything you needed. Lights and business cards and snake bags and rubber bands and pens and pencils and and things to like all of these things, right? And they saw what a well-oiled machine can do, and they're like, "Oh, I see that there's a method to this, and there's a method to this, but we need to refine the method, and that's what I'd like to see you, maybe me, if I come back to the microphone permanently."
Well, you said you were. You said that,
and I would like to. And I plan to. I plan to yank this green screen and put this camera on this. I mean, I didn't buy this whole, teleprompter for nothing because I'm tired of looking off to the side at you like I'm looking now and then trying to engage the audience like I'm doing now. And, it's you're doing it because you're looking at us on one screen, I assume.
And two, it's easier because this is the pre-recorded, right? So I don't have to look at the chat too. So
right. So I'll have the chat up on there where I can just view it live in the spot. And I really would love to have something that I can hotel format. Something I can bring this rig with me, set it up to where we're both being recorded and we sit down in the hotel and we spend time. I don't know what podcasts you watch. If you're ever in the tech world and you want to listen to like AI and crazy tech podcasts, there's a guy named Lex Friedman, and he's an engineer at MIT, but he also hosts one of the best technology podcasts that has millions. I mean, he's got like 7 or 8 million subscribers on YouTube. He's not small. He's huge. And he travels to hotels, or he sets up near his MIT home, or he goes to people's homes. Like, if he interviews somebody like the big Bitcoin guy, Michael Saylor, or somebody that, like you, that has a studio in your home like this, he might just do it in your house, but he's always going to be on a nice microphone but he's going to be places and he's going to go where he needs to go. He just went to Palestine to do an interview with someone, like that kind of thing. Like, I would love to be that guy. I would love to be the guy that's like, let me go to, Moscow and let's hear from a Russian ball python breeder firsthand, or something. I think that'd be fun. But anyway, yeah, I'd like to bring it back, but I'd like to bring it back I'd like to do I'd like, you know what? How about this? Bullshit's done. I've done it already. I've already got it out of my system. The rest of it would be just for you and not for me. And honestly, that bores me to death. So I want to do something more. So I want to take a new reptile show idea, innovate it, let somebody else copy it, make it a new thing, and quit. So I can move on to the next thing and innovate it again. I don't know. Because honestly, no one said fuck before I got a podcast. No one said fuck on a podcast.
No, I don't think that though. Like, I just think that it's, again, we're in this new circle of people. So we're going to end it here. I'll say this.
Make it in 3 shows if you want. Make it in 2.
I think you definitely should be bringing bullshit back.
Thank you.
I definitely think though it should be, if you're happy about it, if you enjoy doing it, because I think that at the end of the day, like I tell people, I don't care if 2 people show up, if 200 people show up, I'm gonna show up because I enjoy doing it and I love the substance of what I'm doing. Like, it's never going to be about somebody else. It's going to always be about the animals, and it's going to always be about what I do and what I engage with the animals, and the things that, and the people who deposited things into where I am with the animals today, whether it's, deposited into my breeding education or just my keeping education, or just experiences with the reptiles. All in all, it's so much to the educational part. And the reality of it is that you can have all these breeders. If we're not bringing in the education to the new generation coming up, who definitely don't know about, we dealt with animals way more because we were more involved in nature. Our kids are on these systems most of the time. They're not out in nature discovering what they like and what they don't.
I used to ask people, if you went to an inner city kid and asked them where a McNugget came from, what do you think they would say? A lot of kids would have no fucking idea that it was actually a chicken.
Right.
That's been pressed into a ball, that's been fried in a thing that has a consistent shape of nothing that ever came off of a chicken. I've been eating chicken my whole life. I come from the home of Popeyes. I don't have to tell you how much fucking chicken I've eaten in my life. I've eaten tons. Church's is great. There's nothing wrong with KFC, but Popeyes is my jam. I'm sorry. It's where I've been my whole life. I detailed the car of the guy who started the company. I did. I put a car stereo in his nephew's RV when I was a teenager. I eat fucking Popeyes chicken, and I'd never seen a piece of chicken come off of Popeyes anything that was shaped like a round ball that had this flat pressed look to it with these lines through it. And I'm like, dude, even when I go to Chick-fil-A and get nuggets, each piece of chicken is an odd shape like a snowflake. McDonald's, how do you do this to a chicken? To where a kid in an inner city might be like, I don't know where McNuggets come from. Them fuckers are good. And that's it. At the end of the day, that's it. You see a chicken on the side of the road, you're like, look at that, bro. You want some McNuggets? And he'd be like, what do you mean? And I hate to say that, and I don't mean it stupid. I mean it that we are so detached from nature in a concrete jungle that I grew up in a concrete jungle. I didn't grow up in a farm country. I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Metairie, which is a outskirt suburb of New Orleans, and the only wildlife it has is squirrels, doves, and rats. I ain't never seen a speckled king snake anywhere near where I lived. I saw some fucking rats this big, though. I saw some bubonic rats that make my jumbo rats look small. But I never saw a snake there. I never saw a box turtle in its native habitat when I was young. And I could have gone 30 minutes from there and seen everything in its native habitat and never was exposed to that. Yeah. And honestly, I think that you are an educator, and I think you have it. And I loved it about you when I first saw you. It's why I reached out to you. It's why I reached out to the whole Back Rack podcast chicks. It's even why I reached out to fucking MJ, and we went through all that shit, because I see somebody with energy and I see them using it for mostly everything good, and I want to be a part of that energy. I want to throw gas on that fire, to make that fire burn more people and make them think, oh man, what's that heat? Oh damn, that's that badass snake looking over there.
I'll say it again. And I have a very unbiased opinion of either.
You're definitely in the middle on that.
That is a podcast that should have happened, and I will say it to both of y'all in your face. That was a podcast should have happened. I think
as long as you know by saying that why I made it not happen. And the reason why is plainly from a place of respect. You've done nothing but show me the utmost respect this entire time. And I think I've done the same to you.
Well, I believe absolutely that's the only way for me. That's the only way we can roll. Like if once I feel like you don't respect me, you get a whole different Nicole. So and there
I kind of want to meet her, but I don't want to push it to that point because I really
community who have met her, and there are some people that the only reason why I try to hold her back is because there's other people I care for that's still connected. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
I know when I'm 50. So I know when you're worth it and when you're not. But when you really, really, really like come like, oh, it's not good.
It's really pissed you off.
No one wants to see that side. And the people who have learned the wrong.
Yeah, they've got the right. They fuck with the bull. They got the horns and and the base, right? They got the tip and the base, right? That's it.
It ain't much you can do about it because you can't get past me and that man behind me or the army behind us. So I always tell people, just leave me alone. I stay over here. I mind my business. Leave me.
You guys have a great following too, though, and I think that that's important for your own goals and everything. And I think that you had you're not all right. You're not a fine narcissist like me, or some of the other podcasters, wherein we have to have credit or we're discredited. And that is your saving grace. It's one of the reasons why I see the future of podcasting being in hands like yours and not like mine. Because I think you're way more of a better ambassador to this thing than I've ever been. And I think that the new generation of people, if they recognize the past and they gave some concessions to the people and the type of people that made the reptile thing a thing, because if you think badly of certain people that drop certain words on certain podcasts, you should really get to know the people you guys worship. Because I'm not going to mention names, but the old fat guys that are now like writing books and being like honored as being like these giant gurus of history in this business are real insufferable, flesh peddling motherfuckers. Okay. We're talking about serious animals.
Like I was saying to you, Sean, I'm cool with people being whoever they are.
That's fine, but what I'm saying is that you got to realize who's deep down in there. Like they might look awesome to you because they live in South Florida and they keep animals in cages outside and they write things like the keeper of the kept is better than the keeper's kept of the keeper's whatever. And at the end of the day, you're like, wait a minute, how many animal felonies have you had? How many animals have you stolen from the wild? How many animals have you killed? How many people have you ripped off? How many? Like, I'm sorry to say that you have gotten somewhere, but let's not talk about the history like it's all fucking gold, because it's not all fucking gold. A guy like Ozzy has a golden history. A guy like Mark Mandic has a golden history.
And a guy like tell you he doesn't have quote unquote a golden history.
But that's because he's that's because he's modest.
I was getting ready to say, but what he has mastered is he don't play about his reputation, and I love that about him. Like, he can stay on his own. He's shutting the fuck up and breathe. That's why he's successful. But he also don't play about his reputation. And when I say that is before we even became closer than we are now. When I was just the customer, right? Mm-hmm. His professionalism taught me a lot about how I was going to treat my customer. And so one of the first comments that he made on a post that my customer made, it made my heart smile because I got a lot of that from him. And what I will always say when it comes to the Aussies and, the bigger breeders in general, the ones that was capable of staying humble, you got people who haven't done half of what they done, who think they're greater than those people. You know what I mean? Right. And I just love his humility. And
what happened with that logo, with that thumbnail was it. That was enough.
Look, Sean, I'm still laughing, but I think again,
that's like if I come to your house and take one of my bags off of me and empty it into your food. Right. That's about what that feels like to a guy who spent 30 years making everything about everyone, not himself, being made into a little baby girl image on a podcast. That right there is enough for me to take somebody outside and spank their raw bottom in front of everyone. And that's exactly what the fuck happened. And that's exactly what I told him on the pre-show. I said, listen, this is me. He didn't know it was coming, but this is me spanking your butt in front of everyone. And I proceeded to do what I did. And I will own that forever, because I will tell you right now, that was the higher road. And there was absolutely no way in the world that I would go on your pod, even as much as I've said about you and as much as I've worshipped about you. Had you done some boneheaded shit, like do a tagline on this episode and do whatever else, I will come out and burn your ass. And honestly, I don't think you'd ever do that.
And everybody, I always ask for wood photos, logo, whatever you want.
But he had a photo that he asked me for that I gave him months prior, when I was promised that would be an above board professional podcast with all of us. And I knew I was walking into something totally different. So you know what? I did what I did, and I hope we can come back from it. But if we can't, I'll refer back to December, and I'll be the same guy I was in December. Because I'm not saying I've grown through this. I've been grown. I don't care if you're only 2 years younger than me or 5 years older than me.
Right.
That's it.
It's definitely a certain level of respect that we must have. I agree with that. But
and back to it, it's the same. One other thing
to you before, that being who you are, right? Being the I know you don't like to hear the word senior because you're not that much older, but you're not older than me at all. But you're not that much older than me.
But I'm elder in the reptile hobby, if that's how you're referring.
Right, exactly.
Like, if I'm the elder in experience
in the reptile hobby,
correct.
I felt like the conversation before that show should have happened like it did, but you should have showed up as the senior in the situation, and it would have been.
I tell you right now, the only way I would have done, the only way that show would have happened was I would have used really big words, and I would have used a lot of really scientific topics and a lot of really heavy jargon, and I'd have laid a lot of knowledge on the line, and I'd have done some showing off that I would literally have been embarrassed of later. And honestly, that was it. I took stock in what will happen if I do this show. And if I do that to him, he will not come back from it. And you know what? A lot of people said to me, including some of his closest friends, I'm really glad you didn't do it, because you would have slaughtered him in front of everyone. And honestly, you know what, Nicole? I would have come for the gut, and I would have done everything I could to make that person look so bad that they never would come back from that podcast. Instead, I just took that higher road and said, I am worth more than this. To you and to me.
But it wasn't the higher road, Sean, because you left me hanging. I was waiting. I was sitting there.
Well, hey, you know what? You can, like I said, you can.
I was in the chat early.
All you do is you go to that podcast and you listen to the answers that I did for his questions. If he truly was going to ask me the questions he was going to ask and respectfully allow me to answer them, then I answered all those questions for you on my own podcast. I just didn't need his ass, and I just didn't need that. And honestly, that was how I took it. I took it as, and yeah, there's some shit that came from that. Somebody decided to talk out their ass, and that it's great. I sold a guy a pair of het puzzles. He bred them for a couple years. I told him he didn't prove them out. They turned out to be cryptic animals. I told him when I had visual puzzles, I would give him a visual puzzle when he only bought a pair of hets for like that $1,500. I told him I'd give him the best visual puzzle of his choice out of the litter, clutch, whatever. He didn't want to wait. I told him that I wasn't in a financial position to make him whole right then, but we could discuss it. He went off on those things in a private manner and blasted out all of our stuff. And then when I called him on it and said, hey, bro, was this you under a different name? He's like, no, I don't know who that was. Yet it was all the details about his stuff. And, it made me kind of weird about it. Maybe it wasn't him that did it, but it was a really weird coincidence that the guy that railed me on that podcast also announced our business dealings when, I could announce that Brian Barchak sold me over $5,000 worth of hets that never proved out, and he never gave me a single thing off of it. I've now returned $1,000 cash to that guy and tried to give him free animals along the way. What else can I do for you? How else can I satisfy a dissatisfied person before I finally say, fuck you, I can't help you anymore? And in this game, if you're going to judge me for that and you're going to write it, because I'll tell you right now, somebody that dresses really well in the ball python game, right? I don't have to lay any more than that on it, right? Somebody that dresses so well that he's one of the best dressed people in the game. He used a super chat on that particular podcast that you missed out on. And he used that super chat, $50 or $100 he paid to blast me for not being on there and call me a pussy or whatever he called me on the thing. And I hit him up and I said, wait a minute, before you were best dressed and when you were average dressed and you were on that side of the table and all you had was questions on how to do this, when did I not tell you what you needed to know? Like when did I not help you? And you know what his answer was? Bro, I got caught up in the moment. I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah,
so pressure got me caught up in the moment.
Everybody to try not to do is get caught up in the moment, because I can say
get caught up in the moment all you want. When Bob Clark said something I didn't agree with, you know what I did? I said Bob Clark's fucking an idiot, and I don't agree with that. That's what I say when I don't get caught up in the moment. I stand alone and I make a good decision. And that guy didn't make a good decision right there. That's why I'm mentioning him right now publicly, because with the fence that I have, none. But to message him after the fact and say, what did I do to you along the way that deserved you to pay money for YouTube to take half of it, for you to rag me in front of this guy? You are part of the problem, not a part of the solution. And, hey, you know what you can do to make it up to me? You can do my podcast and you can tell everybody you're sorry there. Because otherwise, what does sorry do for me now? Right. It doesn't do shit for me now. So, well, I don't, that's it.
I just think that at this particular point, it's still something I wanted. I'll say it over and over again. I
want it to happen too.
That's something
I wanted it to happen to begin with. It was my fucking idea for it to happen to begin with.
He is the, regardless of, because we don't always see eye to eye, right? We don't. Sure, I don't always see a whole eye to eye with a lot of.
I can tell you right now, you would not see eye to eye with me on a lot of things. But that doesn't mean that you're less of a person than me,
right? So I'm going to say that. So what I'm going to say is that I feel like that individual is the it of the podcast right now, whether that's what I feel. Well, and you are the it, from the perspective of who he can get on that podcast, the conversations. I'm not saying that it's the
but Derek's outranked him on guests.
Yeah, but not the quality. You know what I'm saying? Like, not
I agree. Derek doesn't know enough about the industry to really dig into people the way.
And we have to give him credit for his footprint, like with bringing the people together. However way he does it, it happens. I don't want to pull nothing away from that, and I don't want to go.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I personally believe he brings a group of people together that really should not be together in the way that they're together at all. I believe that that's like saying that. I believe that saying a biker gang meeting up at a cafe to do a bunch of crank and go roll a bunch of ethnic groups is not necessarily a great camaraderie.
To that person privately. Now, this is one thing I will say, and is that person.
I did speak to that person privately, and I treated that person with the utmost respect, and I have proof of it. And that person shit all over me from the start. He was aggressive from the start. He was rude from the start. I have it all in writing. If you'd like it, message me and I'll share it with you, because I've shared it with a few people.
I'm over here. I'm just saying, as a part of the reptile community who I like.
When I come at you, the way I came at you, Nicole, how would you like to treat me? Would you like to treat me with hostility and anger? Your best friend died and you have his logo behind you. And I'm laser cutting things. And before you ever knew that fucking dude, I was friends with him for years. Before it started, for years, he asked me to sponsor ball shit. For years, he wanted me to bring ball shit back in more of a drama sense, right? And I'm talking about Forrest Fanning. And Forrest and I didn't talk all that much privately, but when we got together at shows, we'd hang out for a few hours. I could tell you the chairs he sat in while we talked in Daytona. I could point out to you, Forrest would sit here, I would sit here, and sometimes Winston Smith would sit there, and we would have some deep intellectual thought conversations about this industry. And this guy liked the drama. Forrest was down with it. Why? Because he was never involved in it. Forrest never was part of the drama, but he loved it because he thought it humanized a non-human business. And whenever I offered to make him a sign for Zoo Dreams, for his own collection, a big laser cut sign for free. Just him and I would have a sign like that for our buddy Forrest. He completely ignored my messages And when I ran it by him again, he blew up on me and cursed me out. That right there, if Forrest was alive, it's like I told him, Forrest would call you right now and tell you fucked up. That's it. That's it. Nothing shows me real people like that. You believe a guy like Matt Byram, who is a crook, a known crook, yet you don't give me the time of day. It's fine with me. We're done. We're done until you're ready to do something above board. And if he's ready to do that, I'm ready to record it. But it's got to be about reptiles. And I will say that too, to end my little diatribe here. Brian Rivera needs to shut the fuck up. Period. He needs to shut the absolute fuck up. And he needs to let his son come on and talk about snakes and talk about passion. Mm-hmm. You are not our police department. I did not vote on you. I did not appoint you to be our constable. I do not want you there.
So I guess there's no ever y'all talking it out.
No way in the world. And he has done heinous. He's gone after people for heinous reasons for his own personal gain, his own popularity gain. And that to me, fuck you, bro. Fuck you. Fuck you. Done. When I say we disagree on some things,
I'm going to, we disagree right now. I'm going to pray on that. I'm not going to wish
pray on that because that's another thing.
I'm going to pray on that,
for me.
Sean.
Yeah, and I don't do that either. I don't do that part either, but I'm not going to get in there and do that. I'm not going to get in there.
I think as time goes by, that you can come to an understanding.
I'm sorry. He's a scourge on us all. He's not doing good for anyone. Like I told him, I was like, when are you going to fucking podcast about ball pythons? He did like one show on snakes and then right back to the fucking drama.
But see, this is
right back to it.
That's not what his podcast is about. Now, I'm not going to say
Samson Snakeatorium is about.
I don't think no, but that's not what his forum is about. And so what I'm going to say is this. I agree with you. I think that we don't need to be pulling out stuff out of people's private lives and blasting it on in the reptile.
Yes. The Trap Talk podcast is at least about reptiles and about reptile stuff. Yeah, he takes some shit. He runs with it. But at the end of the day, MJ is truly an animal geek. Brian Rivera is the father of an animal geek. Challenge Brian Rivera. Listen to this podcast and do 3 months straight of reptile only podcasting. That is my challenge for you. I know you don't want my respect. I know you don't care about my respect. But if you'd like to earn anyone's respect, why don't you focus on what we need to focus on, not the shit you focus on. Okay. Yeah, I was all about like talking about MJ. But if you watch the episode with Derek about MJ, what do I talk about? Mental health, understanding that I like MJ and I see a lot of myself in him. That's what I talked about. Did I not?
Yeah, I said that too. Yes, you did.
Yes, but you're a friend. You weren't accosted by this person. Were you? Have you been accosted by this person? No. I was accosted. I was accosted by this person, yet still had positive.
Because I think too is that I'm not here for that shit. So
fair enough. I'm not here for that shit either. That's why Brian needs to prove himself or exit the scene because he doesn't contribute anything good.
But if you're not here for it, ignore it. Like, like for me,
I can't ignore it when I'm being taglined as being a racist. I'm not
saying that.
After I've already proven that I wasn't a racist.
That's right.
However, I could.
That's absolutely different. But what I'm saying is that I know that you're for you, the good in it all is that you want to see this community as a whole to get better. So like for me, I can't say that I'm a big fan of quite a few other shows, right?
I'm sure.
But I can say when it comes to that particular person, that particular show, there is sometimes shows that is of substance, right?
Yeah, because he makes some good points about some dramatic issues that you find suit with.
I get it, but he acknowledges the thumbnails and stuff like that. So maybe it's going to be improvement there.
Well, if he respected me at all in anything that I've done, he would not put taglines like he did about me that are going to haunt me forever on YouTube.
So I don't see a lot.
If I try to go get a job, if I try to go get a job somewhere and they search my name on YouTube
There's going to be 2 shows that they find reference of racism in. Both of Brian Rivera's shows, one of which I was in the entire time, where all I did was address racism and my position on it. Yet that doesn't change the thumbnail that I asked politely for him to change, that he refused to change because it's clickbait. Okay.
Has
Just
it,
like
has
what
it directly impacted you personally? Because
absolutely, it's absolutely impacted me personally. It's absolutely impacted me personally. I can speak on it from a personal effect that my daughter cried when she saw the tagline. My daughter begged me to not get involved more in the Pete call situation because of the amount of calls and the amount of frantic shit.
I just felt like with the Pete call situation, you over explained. You
I over explained
it all. Because
I shouldn't have explained it all. I have no idea how to react in that situation, Nicole. I have no idea to react in that situation.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, my whole thing is that I'm not saying that your reaction was right or wrong. I'm just saying,
should I have been?
Is that you didn't owe anyone that level of an explanation? I'm gonna say it here. You did not. He did. You did not.
Fine, but when everybody's asking you for a comment, and no one can get him for a comment. What exactly do you do?
But that was the thing. The thing is that he's still off living his life, and this is still attached.
I agree. You don't even want to know the shit he was texting me as we were going through all that shit, man. It's not okay. It's not okay. And for that reason, ties have been cut from someone that I did consider a friend. And I do feel that his life has met tragedy. And I do feel that he should be given some degree of a break, not for the comment he made, but for the person and the terrible shit that he's become based on his PTSD. Because had he served in the military and lost a spouse in that, would there be more understanding for him? Had I been injured in the military from my spine, would there be more understanding for me? And I'm going to tell you right now, yes. If I was injured in a line of duty in the military, I would have more pandering feelings about me. And at the end of the day, my PTSD is no different than a soldier. In fact, my PTSD, having lost my child and having seen his death, is far outranking of any soldier watching a friend die.
So, but what I will say this,
so there,
sure, that's
if we're leveling tragedy.
Yeah, definitely, but see, this is what happens.